Ana de Armas sat alone in the back of the studio lot, near the rusted fence where no one ever went. The sun was setting, casting a pale orange light across the sky, but she didn't notice it. Her hands were cold, even though it was warm outside. She stared at her phone, reading the same message over and over again. "We've decided to go in a different direction." Thank you. Just 10 words, cold, final, and worse than any heartbreak she had ever felt. It wasn't just a role. The one she thought would finally prove herself to Hollywood. The one she stayed up all night practicing for. The one she fought for after months of silence. She had given everything for that audition. Her emotions, her voice, her truth. But it didn't matter. Hollywood didn't want her anymore. Maybe it never did. Her phone slipped from her fingers onto the dusty ground. She didn't bother picking it up. She leaned her head back against the metal fence and closed her eyes. For a moment, she imagined disappearing. Not in a dramatic way, but quietly. Like how some dreams vanish without anyone noticing. That's when she heard. Footsteps slow, steady, familiar. She opened her eyes and turned slightly, standing just a few feet away, hands in his coat pockets, was Keanu Reeves. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her with that quiet presence he always carried, like he could see more than others did. Yeah, like he felt everything. People tried to hide. "You okay?" Yeah, softly. Ana tried to smile, but it was weak. She looked away and wiped her eyes with the back of her sleeve. Not really. Keanu didn't push. He sat down beside her, close, but not too close, giving her space to breathe. The silence between them stretched for a while, but it wasn't awkward. It was calm, like the kind of silence that only happens when someone understands your sadness without needing words. Finally, she spoke. "I really thought this one would change everything," she whispered. "I thought if I could just prove myself, they'd see me differently. They'd stop saying I was just lucky or just pretty, but I wasn't enough, again." Keanu leaned back against the fence, letting out a quiet breath. "I know that feeling." Ana looked at him. "You? Da. But you're Keanu Reeves." He chuckled softly, shaking his head. That doesn't mean anything when you're chasing something that matters. I've been passed over more times than I can count, and not because I wasn't good enough. Sometimes people just don't see you, or they see only one version of you, and if you don't fit that version, they let you go. Ana looked at the ground. "I don't know how much more of this I can take." He didn't reply right away. Then, slowly, he reached into his bag and pulled out a folded, worn-out script. He held it for a moment, then turned to her. "I wrote this years ago," he said. "Never showed it to anyone. Not the studios. It's not even my agent. It's personal. Too personal, maybe. But I think it's time." Ana stared at him. "You telling me this? 'Cause I wrote it with someone like you in mind," he said. "Someone with heart. Someone with truth. Someone who knows what it's like to feel lost but keeps going anyway." She looked at the script, then at him, and something shifted in her chest. It wasn't hope. Not yet. But it was close. "Do you want to read it?" he asked gently. Ana nodded. Keanu handed her the script, and she felt its weight in her hands. Not just the paper, but the trust it carried. She opened the first page. The title read, "The Quiet in Her Storm." Her lips trembled. This is about someone who wants to quit," she said slowly. "But then someone helps her remember who she is." Keanu nodded. "It's about the moment before you give up, and what can happen if someone reaches out." Ana blinked hard, holding back the tears. "Keanu, thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he said. "Read it first. If it speaks to you, we'll make it together." Ana held the script to her chest. For the first time in weeks, she felt like maybe she still mattered. Not to Hollywood, but to something real. And that was the beginning of everything that came next. Ana stayed up all night reading the script Keanu had given her. She didn't sit at a table or curl up on her bed. Instead, she sat on the old wooden floor of her apartment, the blanket around her shoulders and a cup of untouched tea beside her. The city lights outside blinked through the window, but she didn't notice them. All her focus was on the words in front of her, and those words cut deep. The story followed a woman named Lila, Struggling actress broken by rejection, haunted by the feeling that she would never be enough. Not for Hollywood, not for love, not even for herself. Page by page, Anna felt her heart open. Lila's pain felt too familiar. Every line, every doubt, every moment of silence between the character and the world around her, it all mirrored Anna's own truth. But it wasn't just the pain that got to her, it was the way the character fought through it slowly through. Small gestures, quiet kindness, and unexpected friendship, Lila began to heal. Not through a big success or public praise, but by learning to see herself again. Anna didn't realize she was crying until a tear dropped onto the page. She wiped her cheek. But more tears followed. Not because the story was sad, but because it made her feel seen, understood in a way she had never felt in this city. And in the margin of page 10, there was a note scribbled in Keanu's handwriting. I wrote this part when I felt invisible. Sometimes that's when the best parts come out. Anna covered her mouth, holding back a sob. No one had ever given her something so honest, so full of raw emotion. Not a gift meant to impress, but a gift meant to connect. It wasn't just a script. It was a piece of his soul. By morning, she had finished it. Her eyes were puffy. Her heart was heavy, but something had changed. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, she felt the tiniest spark of purpose again. She picked up her phone, Anna. I finished it. Every word hit me. I don't even know how to thank you, Keanu. You don't have to. Just tell me if you want to help bring it to life. Anna, yes. 100%. I want to do this. For Hollywood. For us. For people who feel like her, there was a long pause before his next reply. Keanu, good. 'Cause I already told the studio we're pitching it next week. I told them I want you as the lead. Anna blinked at the screen. Stunned. Anna. But they won't want me. Not after how the last few things went, Keanu. Then let me handle it. If they say no, we go somewhere else. We make it anyway. Anna stared at that message. He believed in it. More than that, he believed in her. But deep down, fear crept in. Fear that this industry would tear it down. Fear that people would laugh or say she wasn't worthy. Fear that she'd fail again, this time in front of someone who had trusted her with something precious. Later that afternoon, she met Keanu at a quiet little cafe in the hills, far from the city buzz. He was already there, sitting at a corner table with a notepad and 2 coffees. He looked up and smiled when she arrived. You read it? Said. She nodded and sat down, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. I did, and I loved it. I'm scared. Keanu didn't respond right away. He sipped his coffee, then looked her in the eyes. You should be, he said gently. Anything real is scary, but fear doesn't mean stop. It means you care. It means this matters. Anna looked down, then slowly nodded. Okay. Let's do it. Keanu smiled wider. Good, now we start rewrites together. I want your voice. In this, I want your truth. And so, for the first time in her career, Anna wasn't just acting. She was building something from the inside out. Something that came from pain, but carried hope. Something that might not win awards or big headlines, but could speak to people who needed it. She didn't know it yet. But that script would change more than her career. It would change lives. Anna sat in the back of the conference room, holding her copy of the script. She had highlighted certain scenes, made notes in the margins, and even rewritten a few lines in her own handwriting. Her heart was racing. This meeting was supposed to be about the script's direction, how to pitch it, how to make it come alive. But something felt off. The studio exec sat on the other side of the table. Polished shoes, expensive watches, and smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They flipped through the pages like they were skimming a brochure, not reading someone's soul. One of them, a tall man with perfect hair and a sharp voice, finally looked up. We love the idea, he said. And Keanu, your name attached, makes it bankable. But we were thinking of going with someone more visible for the lead. Anna froze. The room went silent. She didn't look at anyone. She just stared at the script in her lap. Her hands began to shake, but she didn't move. She didn't speak. She had heard this tone before, smooth and polite. But filled with sharp edges, Keanu leaned forward, calm as ever. "She is the lead," he said. Voice low but firm. The exec smiled like he was talking to a child. "Keanu, come on. She's good, but this is a risk. We could get someone bigger, someone with more pull right now." Margot's team said she'd be interested. Imagine the headlines. Anna slowly lifted her eyes and looked at Keanu. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The fear in her eyes said everything. This was the moment. If he backed down, she would understand. She wouldn't hate him, but it would crush her. Keanu leaned back in his chair, folded his hands, and took a breath. "I didn't write this for headlines," he said. "I wrote this because I was broken once, because I know what it feels like to sit in silence and wonder if you'll ever be enough." He looked at Anna. "She's not just the lead, just the reason I'm telling this story." Then he turned to the studio again. "If you want my name on this, she stays. No changes, no games. And if that's a problem, I'll walk." The execs were stunned. "Keanu, no," he interrupted, still calm. "This isn't negotiable." Anna blinked hard, trying to hold back the tears. The silence in the room stretched for a long moment before one of the other executives, an older woman who had been quiet the whole time, finally spoke. "We'll go with your choice," she said softly. It's a powerful story, and maybe it's time we stop playing it safe." Anna felt her throat tighten. The meeting ended quickly after that. Papers were gathered, hands were shaken, but she stayed still, unable to move. When the room cleared, Keanu came over and sat beside her. "You okay?" he asked. Anna nodded slowly. "Shh, you didn't have to do that." He smiled. "Yes, I did." "Why?" "Because I've been waiting for something that means something. Not another action movie. Not another check. Something honest. And you're honest." Anna looked away, blinking again. "You just risked your reputation." "Done worse," he said with a grin, and for the first time in a long while, Anna laughed. Not because she was happy, but because she finally felt like she wasn't alone. Over the next few weeks, Anna and Keanu met almost every day. They rewrote scenes together, read lines out loud, added quiet moments where the character didn't speak, but felt everything, cut out flashy dialogue, and filled it with truth. Sometimes they sat in silence for hours just thinking. Other times they stayed up all night, reworking one single line until it felt right. It wasn't easy. The pressure grew. Industry whispers started. People asked why Keanu was risking so much on a failed actress. Blogs made noise. Critics made predictions. Some even called it a vanity project, but they kept going. Because every time Anna stepped into the role of Leela, she wasn't acting. She was her one evening. After a long day of script work, Keanu walked Anna to her car. The sun was setting again, casting long shadows on the pavement. "Do you think this is going to work?" Anna asked quietly. Keanu looked at her for a long time. "I don't know." She smiled sadly. "That's not very comforting." He chuckled. "No, but it's honest. And sometimes honest is enough to keep going." She nodded. And as she drove home, something inside her began to shift. Not hope, not yet, but strength. A quiet kind. The kind that survives. The set was quiet. Too quiet, Anna stood alone in the middle of the dim apartment set they had built for Lila's home. The camera crew was in position, lights ready, mics up. Everyone was waiting. The director had already called action. But she hadn't spoken yet. This was the first real scene they were shooting. The one where Lila comes home from her final audition and realizes it's over. Where she looks at herself in the mirror and breaks down. No words, just pain. Silent, raw, and honest. Anna stared at the fake mirror on the wall. But in her mind, it wasn't fake. She saw her old self in that reflection. The girl who came to loss. Angelus, with nothing but a suitcase and a few dreams. The one who slept on couches. The one who was told to smile more. To speak with less accent. To be thinner. To be someone else. She tried to blink it all away, but her chest was already tightening. Her breath grew uneven, and then it hit hard. A wave of grief so real, it nearly knocked her off her feet. She reached out to the wall to steady herself. Her knees buckled, and she dropped to the floor, clutching her chest, gasping as if something inside her had shattered. No one moved, not even Keanu. He stood just off camera, watching closely, hands folded, eyes steady. Someone on the crew whispered, "Should we cut?" But Keanu shook his head slowly. "No," he said softly. "Let her go." Anna sobbed on the floor, not like in movies, loud and dramatic. This was different. Quieter, deeper, the kind of crying that comes from a place that's been hurting for years, and yet she kept going. Still in character, still as Lila, she crawled toward the small couch, curled up into herself, and whispered a single line, "I'm so tired of not being enough." The room went completely still. A few crew members quietly wiped their eyes. The camera kept rolling. Keanu didn't move. Finally, the director whispered, "Cut." But Anna didn't hear him. She stayed there, trembling, until Keanu walked over slowly, knelt beside her, and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, eyes still full of tears. "I didn't know that would happen. You didn't plan it?" She shook her head. "It just came out." He smiled. "That's how you know it's real." Later that night, she watched the playback. She didn't see herself on the screen. She saw Lila, and Lila looked broken but honest. There was something beautiful in that. Something... Brave words spread fast. Someone from the crew had shared a short, behind-the-scenes clip online, just a moment where Anna sat in character, breathing through the pain, while Keanu stood in silence behind her, letting it happen. It wasn't meant to go viral, but it did. Thousands of people commented, "This is the kind of acting we need more of." I felt her pain through the screen. Whatever this is, I want to see it. Anna woke up the next morning with her name trending, but not for a scandal, not for gossip. For art still, not everyone was kind. There were critics, of course. People who called her too emotional, too unstable, too intense. Even some former producers said it was all a publicity stunt, but Anna didn't care, because that scene had healed something inside her. Or maybe not healed, maybe just brought it to light. And in doing that, she found something new. Truth, a voice that didn't need permission anymore. A few days later, they shot a quieter scene, one with no tears, no drama. Just Lila, sitting across from a stranger, talking about small things. And Anna felt something strange as the scene ended. Peace. After the take, she turned to Keanu. Double quotes, "I think I'm starting to understand her," she said. He smiled. "You are her. Do you think people will understand this movie?" Maybe not. But someone out there needs it. Anna looked around the set. I think I needed it too. And that night, for the first time in years, she fell asleep. Without feeling like a failure, she didn't dream of awards. She didn't dream of applause. She just dreamed of Lila, sitting by a window, breathing quietly, and finally letting herself be. Weeks passed. The final scene had been shot. Editing was complete. The music was subtle and raw, built from real strings and soft piano, just like Keanu wanted. No dramatic swells, no studio pressure, just something that felt true. The film was ready, but Hollywood still wasn't sure. Despite Keanu's name, the marketing team was hesitant. It was too quiet, too raw, too emotional for wide release. They agreed to one test screening, just one, with a small selected audience of industry guests and strangers pulled from mailing lists. Anna sat 3 rows from the front. Her hands gripped the armrests tightly. She didn't wear makeup, didn't style her hair. She didn't care how she looked. All she could think about was what would happen if they hated it. If they walked out, or worse, said nothing at all. Keanu sat beside her, calm as always. He looked over once and whispered, "No matter what happens, this story matters." The lights dimmed. The film began. 90-3 minutes passed. Not a single laugh. Not a single cheer. Just silence. Anna felt her stomach twisting. When the credits rolled, no one clapped. Just more silence. Her throat tightened. She looked down at her hands and waited for someone to say something. Anything. But the crowd just sat there, unsure of what they had seen, unsure how to respond to a film that hadn't tried to entertain. Just tell the truth, then. A woman in the back stood. Up, middle-aged, plain clothes, tears on her cheeks. She raised her hand and spoke into the quiet room. Thank you. Her voice trembled. I came here tonight by accident. My friend gave me her invite. I didn't even know what I was watching. But I just left a job interview where I was told I'm too old to start over. For weeks I felt like a ghost. But then I watched this film, and she broke down. I saw myself in her. I saw my pain in her silence. And I wanted to say thank you, because this wasn't a movie. It was a mirror. The room stayed silent, but something changed, one by one. Others began to nod. A young man raised his hand and said he hadn't cried in years until tonight. A studio assistant whispered that she had planned to quit tomorrow. Changed her mind after seeing Lila fight through the darkness. An older actor spoke softly, saying he finally felt understood after decades of rejection. Tears, honesty, connection, no. Applause, just truth. And in that moment, Anna felt something shift deep inside. Or they didn't need the industry's approval, they had something more powerful. People were seeing themselves outside. Under the dim glow of the theater lights, Anna and Keanu stood quietly. Neither of them said much. The night air was cool, and the street was quiet. I thought they hated it, Anna said finally. Keanu looked at her. I didn't know what to feel. Sometimes the deepest films don't spark applause, they spark silence. Because the heart needs a moment to breathe. She nodded. You were right. Someone out there needed this. Keanu placed a hand on her shoulder. And someone in here did too. She looked at him. How did you know? She asked. How did you know I could do this? He smiled, not arrogantly, but gently, because when I watched you fall apart. On that floor, I didn't see an actress pretending. I saw a soul speaking. Anna didn't reply. She didn't have to. In that stillness, she felt something she hadn't felt in years, not success, not pride, but peace. The kind that only comes when you stop chasing validation and start telling the truth. A few days later, the studio called. They were surprised by the audience feedback. They wanted to explore more screenings, a limited release, film festivals. But Anna didn't care about all that anymore. She cared about one thing. The story was alive. And someone, even just one person, had felt seen because of it. The morning after the test screening, phones began to ring. Emails flooded in. Calls from small theaters, art house curators, film festivals. Not the big flashy ones, but the ones that cared about stories. They didn't want to change anything. They didn't want stars or posters or campaigns. They wanted the film. And word kept spreading. A quiet ripple in a loud industry soon. The bigger names noticed. A well-known distributor reached out, one that had helped turn small films into award winners. They offered money, real money, wide release, marketing campaigns, billboards. But there was a catch. We'll need to tighten it, the representative said in a video call. Speed it up, cut the longer silences. Maybe bring in a more marketable face for press. Kane is great, but the buzz isn't strong enough for her to carry this on a global level. The right polish, this could be a contender. Keanu stayed quiet as the man spoke. Anna sat beside him again. Her stomach dropped. This was it, the offer, the chance to take the film mainstream, but only if they erased the very soul of it, finally. Keanu leaned forward. You're asking me to erase the silence that made someone feel seen. The man smiled. Awkwardly, it's just business. Keanu shook his head slowly. This story wasn't born in a boardroom. It was born on the floor of an empty apartment, while someone cried in real pain. If we lose that, we lose everything. The man tried again. Look, I'm just saying this film could go big. I don't want big, Keanu said calmly. I want real. The man fell silent. Keanu ended the call. Anna didn't speak for a moment. Then she looked at him with something close to awe. You just walked away from the biggest offer we've had. Keanu shrugged lightly. Money fades. Truth stays. She smiled, small and real. I finally understand what you meant. A few months later, the film premiered at a small international festival. No red carpet, no screaming fans. Just seats. A screen in silence by the end. People didn't clap. They cried. They came up to Anna and Keanu afterward, hands trembling, voices soft, thanking them not for the film, but for the feeling. For showing a life that wasn't shiny. For making pain feel like something that could be held and understood. It was released in just 37 theaters, but it reached hearts in every one of them. One morning, Anna sat on her small apartment balcony, wrapped in a sweater, sipping tea. The sun was rising, and the city was still half asleep. Her phone buzzed beside her. A message from Keanu. They sent a nomination list. You're on it, Best Actress. She stared at the screen for a long time, then smiled. Not because she wanted to win, but because she had already won the day someone in that theater whispered, I saw myself in her. She replied simply, thank you for showing me who I really is. A few weeks later, she stood on stage at a quiet indie awards night, no fancy gown, no loud music, just a small wooden trophy and a microphone. She held the award for a moment, then looked out at the crowd. I used to think success was about being chosen. Now I know. It's about choosing yourself. And someone once gave me a story that reminded me I was still here, still enough, still worthy. I hope this story reminds you too. And somewhere in the back of the room, Keanu smiled. Because sometimes, the greatest stories don't need applause, just someone who's finally ready to believe in themselves again.